become involved with Moonlight? How did it find you, or how did you find it?
So I was a fan of Barry's. I was living in the Bay Area at the time. I was living in Berkeley.
For Medicine for Melancholy.
Medicine for Melancholy. Yeah. And so I was living there from like 2006 to 2011, 12-ish. And I'd seen a Bay Area film, Medicine for Melancholy, there, and I was like, who is this filmmaker? This is incredible. I had never seen a film like it. And flash forward, whatever, 8 years, and the script came across my desk, and I heard there was some buzz about it already, and I read it, and I was just blown away by it, and found out that it was obviously written and to be directed by Barry Jenkins, but also there was a producer involved in it that my first Bay Area project film that I've ever done, called Kicks. I shot in 2014, I think. Well, it had the same producer on it, and so she had kind of pitched me to Barry, and so between me getting it and really responding to it and having a De La Romansky, you know, taking Barry by the ear and showing him some tape on me, the opportunity came about, and really excited to be a part of it because I'm just such a fan of his work. I think he's a genius, and we throw that around a lot. But Barry Jenkins is a genius.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when I saw Medicine for Melancholy in 2006, 2007, and I was in the same. I was doing film festivals and he was doing film festivals, and I saw it, and it was so beautiful. And it was, I think there was a aesthetic at that point that was like more about rawness or something that was not as placed and planned. And Medicine for Melancholy was so gorgeous. It had that aesthetic sensibility that I was just, and I loved the dialogue and the actors, and he seemed to really love his characters. And then when I saw Moonlight, it felt like he really gave you guys so much space.
Yes, he did. It was a real collaborative effort. There was a real collaborative spirit about it. But he knows what he wants. He just knows how to, and I think this is very difficult because it takes a lot of courage and trust on part of the director and writers to sort of not finish the drawing. You know, and allow someone else to come in and improve upon it in some way, and to put flesh on those bones. Derek Cianfrance works very similarly.
You replaced Beyond the Pines.
So Barry's amazing.
This old lady, she stopped me. She said, running around, catching up all that light. Tell me about you. I want to know about you,
Can we just stay on Moonlight for 1 second? This is gonna be. This is just all I want to do. Anyway.
I know what you're gonna do here. I know what you're gonna do.
I'm just putting it. No, but I feel like what I felt. I mean, like, I know you've worked a lot in like long form television as well as in films, and like the thing about films, it feels like they're closer to poetry in some ways, because it's like everything has to count, but everything, but you can also leave things more unresolved, and so it feels like, in a way, it feels closer to poetry. And what I felt when I was watching,
there's not a pressure to make it clean and finish. There's a different, the expectation isn't there.
To make it all
it can end
tidy.
with an ellipses, right?
But at the same time, everything counts because it's this much. So it's like it can be elliptical, but also everything has to be just perfect. And when I was watching Moonlight, I felt like the actors became poets in a way. And I don't know if you felt like that.
Well, I guess Sharon is like a loose haiku in that it when he does speak, like it all adds up together to tell something in perfect rhythm. And and the way he uses 3 different characters, it's such a beautiful character and wonderful performances.
The scene with you when you guys, I mean, even when you bring him home and you're just like, my girlfriend's gonna make you talk and she can't do it, but then when he asks you, what does this word mean, and it's all about the silences between everyone. I mean, it was like I got a chance to watch everybody's thoughts go across their face.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that, I mean, when
And you haven't got, look, not to interrupt, but
Yeah.
for me, we don't get to do art films, right?
Yeah.
And so to see people who look like that, who come from that place, having an opportunity to be quiet,
so yeah.
and you get to project your own emotions and thoughts on those characters who did not grow up next to you, right?
Right.
But in that way, it gives you an opportunity to be just as close to them, though.
Right.
Because they're
Yeah.
not telling you how to think about them.
No.
And so, and again, that is Barry, and then that's the courage that I talked about, because you have to cast people in a manner that, in him trusting his own ability to direct and guide a performance where he's going to be able to tell this story and impact people in that way. So I think there's so many, there's gifts upon gifts in that film and in that experience, and it's wonderful to see people take it in the way that they have.
I don't know. I mean, like.
I'm gonna talk about you in a moment.
I know, but I just really want to say, it's just because I just felt like I don't know how much what your process was like with Barry, with building the character and the his backstory and his psychological life and where he comes from and where he's going and what's going on with his world, but it felt like that Hemingway thing of like the writing the tip of the iceberg, and you just write the tip of the iceberg and everything underneath it is what counts. And it felt like, particularly with your character, it felt like we were walking into it felt like we were watching someone living. And I don't, did you guys spend a lot of time talking, or did you do a lot of the work on alone, or how did that?
Wow. Well, I guess in some way that there are these characters that I've found myself having to really put a concerted effort towards bridging that gap. And I think you get different parts at different times in your life according to what it is that you need, because they have something to teach you, right? So you may be struggling with owning your space.
Right.
So you might find yourself getting these parts that that ask you to be commanding in some capacity, right? And you're like, I have a very difficult time owning my space or feeling comfortable in my body, so I'll find myself getting a certain type of part. With Juan, which was interesting, is that you go to like a grad school or these acting programs and you're doing Chekhov and Ibsen and Shakespeare and Arthur Miller and all these wonderful writers. But then, for me, someone who looks like me, you get out of school and you're not gonna get to play those parts.
Right.
But I found myself in kind of riding a wave of, and not with any intention to do that, but like kind of in the world of like more conservative characters.
Right.
So what happens is, and I'm gonna make this point,
is
you get a character like Juan.
Yeah.
And it's a guy who I really, truly, deeply know, guys who I grew up with, you know, and that wasn't the totality of my group of friends, but I knew those guys or have cousins who have been in that life in real close proximity.
Right.
But as you have a career, and the more I work, the less I'm around people that look like me, because if you kind of move up the ladder, you get removed from that world. So the hotels you stay in, who you travel with, who you work, it's just the reality of the world we live in. And any success you have in any business, you kind of get distanced from people of color.
Right.
So in playing a part like Juan, it's almost like coming home.
Right. Oh,
and so something that should feel really natural. So there's a fear because I haven't been home in so long.
Yeah.
But then once you're working on the day, you're like, oh, I know this guy. So there's a well of
underneath
the iceberg
it,
is there. You just have
it's-
never had an opportunity to access it. Or and in that way, and especially like I mentioned before, in what is essentially an art film.
Yeah.
And so for me, it hit home on so many levels that we could talk all day about, but I refuse to talk about myself any longer.
Wait, can I give you one more thing? It's not it's a comment. It's a comment just about your character in the movie, because because it is elliptical and there are these sections.
Yes.
But what I find, like, I mean, this movie is so, it's hard for me to talk about this movie without crying.
That's
I love it so much. But wait, but I was gonna say, your character, it's like, it becomes, it's not in a scary way, but it's almost like a ghost story, that the ghost of one continues, and that this boy growing up, it's the little one is gone, and then and it's like the ghost of all these selves, and so that you never, it's not like Juan leaves and then you don't remember. I mean, of course he dresses like him, but it feels like all of these people that are gone are present, and it has that, I mean, and I think that it was all the actors, you guys brought this, that's the bottom of the iceberg. I get so inarticulate when I talk about things I love.
No, thank you.
It's so easy to talk about things you don't like.
Thank you.
And then when you talk about things you love, you just get weepy.
But I appreciate it. I think it's so good to be a part of something that people want to talk about in that way. And last thing I'll say about it before I get to gush over you is Barry wanted that ghost quality.
Did he?
That was intentional.
Oh, of course
because
it was,
when you grow up in these communities and you have these experiences where I remember a friend in high school got shot through a door. Like literally, you're with them one day and then they just disappear and they're done. And his sister was so affected by that. And she was never the same. And like, you're just with people and you're playing ball, and the next thing you know, they're like over something stupid, they're just gone, or they just get snatched up and they're in prison for 10 or 15 years. And so what Barry was trying to do for the audience is in some way recreate that feeling that Chiron was going to have when you're getting close to this person and then they're having this fairly positive impact on your life, or becoming a guiding force in your life, and then they're just snatched, or they're gone, and they're or even if they're guys, corner boys, they're on the corner, you see them every day, you pass by them, all of a sudden they're not there anymore. You're like, well, what happened to them? And it also touches on the cycle, what happens in touching on masculinity and these examples, and you see who Chiron becomes in the 3rd chapter, and the potential of the very same thing happening to him, because he's basically following in the footsteps of the most present father figure that he's had. And so how the system, 2 things are gonna happen to him. He's either gonna get killed or he's gonna end up in prison. And so, and that's the most positive masculine force that he's had in his life.
I see the shapes.
Having a kid seems like the hardest thing.
How much you love the kid. You're just pretty much screwed. You get to see him out in the world as a person. I never will.
So what drew you to 20th century?
So what drew me to 20th century?
and to Abby?
Oh no! Now the tables have turned.
Yes, the tables have turned.
Okay. So I really liked Mike Mills's movies. I think he's one of the filmmakers that's making just really interesting personal films, and so he sent me that script, and I had a meeting with him, and I gave him a book about a California sculptor, because I was like, this is sort of, that's for some reason I feel like this relates to your film, and because I thought I'd never see him again, because I thought he would cast somebody else, and
so this is just a general meeting. You're filling each other out,
right? And I also thought, I'm not trying to fish for compliments. But there's lots of people, especially with these little movies, that you can cast. If you can get a big name to do some of these things, it's better for your budget.
But you realize you're a big name, right?
Well,
I know you could be in denial of that.
I mean, there's,
but like you and Parker Posey have like these little indie queendom, like you know, things going on, and
well,
I think
nice.
they sit across from each other. There's a little pond in between, and then like
that's nice.
There's your queen.
I like that. But I didn't think that he would cast me. But I instantly I had a very, when I read the script, I felt protective of Abby right away, and I think that's always a key for me. And it's not, as you know, as an actor, you're not always sitting there saying, I'm choosing to do this thing or that thing. So much of it is what comes to you, and
of course.
but that feeling of I want to protect this person, and even if you don't play the part, it's a sense of,
you know, who's gonna do that?
Yeah, who's gonna take care of them?
Advocate for this person?
Yeah.
I love that though. Protect.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is, and I've never heard it phrased like that. It's so simple and true,
and
for sure.
Yeah, that was the feeling I got, and then time passed, and he took his time, and then he said, "Do you want to play this part?" And I was thrilled, and I think these kinds of movies, smaller movies, only work when there's a director with this clear vision, and that they're able to create a kind of a area of safety around you, or like a bubble that you feel that you can enter in this world of make believe with these people, and Mike is great at creating that, and I think that was what made all of the performances feel so lived in, is that we felt like we were really in this world together, and it never felt like performing.
Right.
Which is,
I love the menstruation scene.
Menstruation.
I heard there's a lot of improv going on in that.
Actually, that was one of the scenes that there was some improv happening, and it was, and he's good at creating spaces for people to really to give those kinds of performances, and not forcing anything either. So it was, and also it was Annette Bening was
brilliant.
There was a moment where we were lying in bed together, and I was asking her character is my character. I was asking her about having children, and what it was like, and she was saying the hardest thing is how much you love them, and I was looking into her eyes, and
because
I thought,
your character also can't have children, right? And so feeling like she's never going to experience
never gonna have that, and sometimes when you're an actor, you can really, even though there's all this stuff happening around you, and there's all these lights and sound and camera, but it feels like it's just the two of you, and you're really having this conversation with this person, and you're both in character, and it's elaborate pretend, but it feels
private and public.
It feels private, and I think that's the thing that I always gravitate towards.
You know what I thought was really interesting about the film was I had to keep reminding myself that this is the 70s, early 80s, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't move over.
Yeah.
Because there's something about, I think it's in the writing, the performances as well. Also, funny enough, even wardrobe and how those things almost repeat. But it also feels like there's just so much unfinished business from 40 some odd years ago.
I know.
And so some of the things that, if not everything, that the characters were dealing with or wrestling with feel just as relevant to this time. So it feels in some ways as if this could have been dated 2013 or something, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I was reading all this because Abby, the character I was playing, was a photographer and living in New York, and
well, she would have had to be on digital. She would have been using a digital camera.
Digital,
but other than that.
But I read all the. There's a group of essays called "Sisterhood is Powerful," and it's a feminist essays from the '70s, and they really could have been written yesterday. I mean, the whole. I mean, I'd never really listened to the Jimmy Carter speech, the Malays.
That's one of my
speech.
favorite moments in the movie, and you're like, why didn't he get a second term?
I know.
But you're also aware of
Right.
how things can work in our country.
I know.
And if you seem soft or too esoteric.
Right, or if you're saying having things and buying things won't bring you happiness.
Right.
If we measure the health of our country by the
Right.
GDP, it's
Right.
very difficult.
Yes.
But I mean, I also because we're both from California, and I definitely had the sense in the script of that of being from California and feeling like you wanted to go, particularly to New York, but to the East Coast, or like that California somehow was not where you could make yourself. I don't know why.
Yes.
Did you have this at all?
Yes. 100%. 100%.
So, and that's
because that's one of the things I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Like what, and we can go back to
Yeah.
that, but how, being from, because I'm from the Bay Area.
Right.
So I'm familiar with Sacramento and
Right.
went up there. It's a 2-hour drive.
Yes.
Went up there several times in my youth.
Right.
But
And what did you do there? Did you do like
You know, I feel like I had like basketball. Like we played Jesuit high school.
Jesuit high school? Jesuit was the
My
brother
buddy
school.
JJ Polk played there, and like I had like friends up there, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so it was usually like around sports or
Sports,
something like
right,
that for
right.
me, and we just knew the government was
Right.
up there essentially. But you
Right.
really have to go to have a reason
Yes.
to go to Sacramento.
Right.
Funny enough, but then I think vice versa, it was more so like you could probably come into the Bay Area, go to San Francisco,
that's what
and
you'd
just
say.
hang out.
Yeah,
right?
you go to the city.
Right.
Was like go to the city was you know, we'd go to. I mean, we didn't go to San Francisco so much, but San Francisco was the biggest city. I mean, in the Bay Area in general, felt like it was definitely like you got to college. Maybe you said you were from the Bay Area,
Right,
Because
right.
it seemed
Close.
cooler.
Yeah, you're right.
than,
right.
but,
So let me ask.
Yeah.
With your upbringing,
Yeah.
your experiences in Sacramento, and the reason being I'm asking this because I feel like I could relate. Like, what got you out to New York? Why'd you tap into that? Why'd you buy into that?
Right.
Which I think is a real truth, though,
Yeah.
and find yourself going that route. Because you went to Barnard?
I went to Barnard College for women uptown, and I had a really, you know, I think some of these things they don't have good logical reasons. I attached to New York. I'd gone there once when I was, or a couple of times when I was very young, and I'd seen Broadway plays. I saw, in 1991, I saw.
Don't say it.
I saw Gypsy with Tyne Daly. I saw 42nd Street, and I saw another one. What did you see?
I saw Angels in America in
Oh my
91.
God.
That was my first straight play
No.
I'd ever seen. So I was like, okay, we were probably sitting
I
next to each
didn't. No,
other.
I didn't see Angels then because I would have been a little young for Angels. But I did see Angels later, and I had a mythology associated with New York that was, I didn't have a particular reason for it other than I thought that's where you go. And there's this later I read this. There's this E.B. White essay called "Here Is New York," and there's a line in it that says, "No one should move to New York unless he is willing to be lucky." And I like willing to be lucky.
Wow.
And I thought that was it. I had attached something mythical onto it,
Right.
and I don't know, and I didn't know why, and I've never fallen out of love with it.
Right.
I still feel grateful every day.
Well, I do believe that there are sort of creative chakras,
Yeah,
different
right.
sort of energy centers,
Right.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like the type of person that is, you know, there may be more of them in a certain area, and the
Right.
way there's something about tapping into your personal engine in New York, and therefore something forcing you to be reflective of why you're doing it, how
Right.
you want to do it, and it leads you to finding your voice,
Right.
so to speak, where I don't think there's enough support for that in Sacramento. And
right,
even the
right.
Bay Area, because it's almost like the energy is a little bit too spread out, so that there's not enough of a
Right.
healthy collective to
Right.
be able to uplift and support each other, to
Right.
have the type of success
Right.
that you can go away and then come back to it.
And who is you?
Nobody. I found him yesterday. Found him in a hole on 15. Yeah, that one. Some boys chased him in the cut.
Well,
Did
I'm
you
gonna
have a
ask you
lot of
something.
rejection?
Let me ask you first,
Okay.
because I talked
Okay.
a lot.
No.
Because look, your characters that I remember one day I was like, I gotta look her up, because what's her story? And that's how I found out you were years ago. Like, and I was just really curious about like what your journey was. I was like, how is this girl making a living? Because she's always doing these independent films,
Well,
like wonderful independent films. But it made me curious because you bring such a unique quality, and maybe it's a combination of what you're also attracted to, but I feel like your characters are unique, but that there is a bit of a quirkiness to them that makes me go, I wonder, was she of the others,
Right,
like growing
right,
up? Like,
yeah.
was she kind of on the outside?
Yeah,
and
right.
and how does that play into your choices, your opportunities, and like, I guess, what do you say no to, and who says no to you?
Right. Well, I mean, I guess when I was much like my desire to get to New York, which wasn't even, I didn't have a sense of. I mean, I didn't go to school for acting, and neither did you initially. You went to
Initially.
graduate school,
Yeah, later,
but like
later.
you were. Like,
I was in communication, and I went.
Right.
I studied communication and playing basketball.
and playing basketball.
Yeah. And then later I got
and then
MFA.
you got the bug, and then
Yes.
you properly really
Yes.
trained. And yeah, I mean, I didn't have a sense of. I loved theater. That was part of wanting to be in New York. And when I got to New York, I also really fell in love with film, which I didn't know as much about, because there wasn't. In Sacramento, there wasn't a serious like repertory theater,
Right.
and it was before Netflix, and it was
Right.
before you could get everything delivered to you.
Yes.
So it wasn't in New York. I really discovered art house film in a
Right.
way that I hadn't known about, or I'd only peripherally known about. And I think I made a decision at some point in college that I wanted to, any way they would take me, work in either film or theater. I wanted to be around actors and writers and directors and storytellers and people that, for whatever reason, felt that the best use of their life was telling stories.
So were you writing very early on?
I was doing anything I could do. So I was doing a lot of technical theater. I was like doing lights and sound and stage managing, because I learned that they won't let you close to a theater if you say, I want to write a play or
Wow.
act in a play. But if you say you can program a light board for free,
Wow.
everyone will let you in.
Wow.
So that's sort of how I kind of started doing stuff. And I'd always had this sense of just wanting to be part of it.
So that makes
Yeah.
sense, though, because your parts just naturally
Yes.
have such a texture to them. So I could see, like, the way you're speaking about the patch
Right.
quilt
Yeah,
of
the
experience
patchwork.
that's led
Yeah.
you to the work and being able to
Yeah.
work professionally, why they have so much texture. So what's the part that you want, or the type of part that you want, if forgive the phrase, that you haven't been offered yet?
Oh.
Like, what is that world?
Well, I guess the world for me is, I really always thought if I had a strength as an actor, I was like, well, as you were saying, in graduate school you were doing, Shakespeare and Chekhov and O'Neill, and I was a character actor, and I did a lot of musicals, and I was always the girl who could play the 80-year-old woman who could dance, in
Yes.
Pippin. That was,
Yes.
things like that, and so those are the parts that I feel like I'm a very uncomfortable fit in the ingenue part. I always feel like I don't know what to do with my face, and I don't like it, and I've never felt
So
good
I
there.
need to see you do that.
Yeah, that's
I need
what
to
I
see
want.
you do that. Yeah.
Like and so what about you? What do you think? What are your parts that you?
It's so funny. I feel like I found myself, for whatever reason, I've always been told, oh, you have, it's gonna sound like a jerk, but I was always told like, oh, you have presence.
Presence.
And I don't even know what that means, but I've been told that.
Right.
So I found myself getting almost like like I'm talking in grad school, I'm 25 and I'm playing the 60-year-old like
right.
guy
Yeah.
who had to be the kind of have this authoritative presence in the play. So they were kind of like these featured parts. And then in one of the, I remember doing a Sam Shepard piece and being this older, what play was that?
There's always an older.
Old,
I know what you mean.
Crazy.
But that
guy.
like the guy who's like drinking and he's like, I was a cowboy.
Yes. So I'm
exactly.
doing stuff like that.
Right.
And so I found myself sort of becoming a character actor.
Right.
Though I don't know if that would be my natural makeup, but it's kind of
what you would
compared to who I was with in a class of 18 actors.
Right.
And then just trying to survive as an actor getting out of school.
Yes.
And who gets cast for what? As that starts breaking down, you're like, well, I gotta make this part work.
Right.
So then but I think the good fortune in that is that your skill set kind of stretches. So I've just haven't got to do the leading man thing. So I would love to do that.
You should do that. I mean,
So
but I
love
feel
that.
like I think of you as a leading man though.